Hi, I'm Mark Anthony Eterno, author of Maldine, Cyberdawn, Inspector Flatfoot, and a bunch of other stuff. uh, Today's writing tip, I thought I'd talk about what it is that really defines an epic fantasy. Now, there are many examples of epic fantasies out there. Most people immediately point to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, but there's also the Fine of Our Tapestry, which I like a lot, and uh, several others. But about a couple of years ago, there was a discussion online as to, what makes an epic fantasy. And being the author of something easily considered rather epic, I posted my own opinion. And there's a few responses, and they seemed rather limiting. In most cases, the, their definition of epic fantasy was okay, it has to be strictly Tolkien. You have to have the one hero and the one object and the supporting characters, and it has to be a hero's journey from point A to point B and all that other stuff. uh Thing is, to me, that's um a very small subgenre. The Tolkien Quest is a small piece of um a possible epic fantasy, and it shouldn't be limited to that alone. And in fact, the whole hero's journey thing, um, I found out a few months ago, actually came from, and I forget who it was, but somebody had noticed that there are several books that follow the same formula, and so he wrote a novel basically poking a bit of fun at that and called it The Hero's Journey. He meant it as a way of pointing out, it's like, hey, you guys are using the same formula, and people took that as a Bible, and you got to have the hero's journey. The thing is, epic need not be just that. You don't have to have just a limit from location A to location B, and not just center things in a single main character. If you need an example, in real life, there's the Civil War, World War One, World War Two, and the Revolutionary War. The Civil War, if you were to film something, and there have been movies and miniseries and stuff, if you were to film something that had every aspect of what went on in the Civil War, just of what would be considered main characters, that movie would last about a week or so, and be like, uh, thousands of pages long. So, excuse me. So that's an example of a real life epic, and it doesn't go near the hero's journey or the limited thing that people classify as epic. Those are real life epics. Um, now take something like that out of real life, throw in the magic, the wizards, the fantastic creatures, and the limits of your imagination, and that's an epic. Um, you need not have just the hero's journey or the Tolkien style epic or whatever else. If you want something truly broad in scope, add in more than one main character, two, three, dozen, whatever. Um, Anything the story can handle, and then you can have a whole raft of secondary and support characters. I do that in my books all the time. But also make sure, if you do this, that you have a large enough canvas, that your world is large enough, that the story is broad enough, and that the object, the end goal, is big enough. Um, at the least, the entire world, as the characters know it, should be at stake. Now, I mean entire world as they know it. That depends on the skill you put on. Say if it's something like the Roman Empire, their entire world is the Mediterranean area. So an epic like that, it should be the entire Mediterranean area is at stake. Or if it's like a planetary level thing, like aliens come down and invade or whatever, then the entire world should be at stake. Or in the case of Star Wars, yeah, the entire galaxy at stake. Whatever, in context of the situation, the entire world that those characters know of ought to be at stake in a good epic. Um, and the villain in question should be one that could easily handle all the characters at once. He shouldn't be a pushover. And whether by sheer force of power or by the fact that he's just that crafty, he should be someone that if you have, a perfect example just occurs to me in the Marvel Universe. You have Thanos and then the entire team of the Avengers, and it's still in Thanos' favor. Part of that is from his own power. Part of it is from this plan that he's had. But that's the sort of villain, that you want to do your big, bad, nasty in a proper epic. Um, oh yeah, and every story has its ups and downs. The ups and downs of a good epic should be numerous and quite torturous. Never be afraid to kill off a main character if that's what the story calls for. And I've actually done worse than kill off a few characters. I'm not mentioning which ones ahead of time because that would be spoilers. But in fact, well, being in a fantasy world, of course, you can have a character kill off and then he's somehow brought back. But there's a couple of times that I've killed off, and again, I'm not mentioning which one, I've killed off a character in such a way that it ain't coming back. And it had very deep emotional repercussions, affected certain characters in the plot in a really big way. Now the plot, of course, plot point A should logically lead to plot point B and to plot point C. However, the logic should only be apparent to the writer, because the author is the only one that knows everything going on in the background that the characters don't. So that's how you can have a few surprises pop up in your story, because you as the writer know everything that's going on, but the characters and the reader don't. So it's all from their point of view. The characters know A, B, and C of what's going on. Then all of a sudden there's a sudden twist, good or bad, because there's something they didn't know that didn't make itself apparent. It should still follow quite logically, though, from whatever background that is in there that the author knows about. And again, in my own stories, I have that going on all over the place. I get so many details just in the Maldine book as to what's really going on that if you look carefully at the text are hinted at. Not any really big hints, mind you, but the sort of thing that once it's uncovered, if you go back and reread, you'll discover that the clues have been there all along. That's the sort of thing that you need in a good epic. So, twists, and I know there's some authors that have probably tried this, but plot twists should never come from, hey, I'll put in one random soap opera like twist here, and I'll make sense of it later. No, you should know ahead of time exactly what's going on, and the twists come solely because the characters don't know what's going on. So what's my own personal definition of an epic, or my own personal example? First, epic implies no limits. You shouldn't, you shouldn't have any real limits. Take it to the very edge of your imagination, and press your fantasy world, to its own limits and a step beyond. Do not let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't put into a story. Not like, well, Tolkien did it that way. No, just because one person did it that way, no reason you to. Or, hey, my literature professor told me to do it that way. Well, to that, there's always the good response. Is he teaching, or is he actually getting his books published? If you're taking a few tips from somebody who's actually successfully published, that's one thing. And even then, those are tips that work for him. If he probably started out with a unique idea, that's why he's selling. You could have a unique idea, a unique way of doing things. You don't have to do the same formula that everyone else does, because the hero's journey has been done to death. It's worked great, but it's done to death, and there's some people that think that's the only way to write a good fantasy or sci-fi epic. And that's just wrong. Let your imagination be wild and free. Um, Perfect example is the own epics I've written, which would constitute Maldine, and also my Cyberdonna, which you see in the first book. Maldine is a great example that I would point as being something a bit beyond epic. It's in all 13 books, has about 250 main characters, give or take, 5.2 million words between all 13 books. It involves not only the world of Maldine, but several other worlds that it goes and jumps to from time to time as the series goes on. Earth time, it spans thousands of years, with a few temporal jumps back tens of thousands of years. So it is a story on a very grand canvas, and that's why I feel myself qualified to talk about what defines an epic. And the end of each book, for instance, I always have a lead in to the next part of the story. I have an epilogue at the end of every single book, and that's just the way it works for my story. So you read at the end, and all of a sudden, after it says the end, there's one more page. That's my little cliffhanger, lead in, hint, whatever. That would be the equivalent of the post credit scenes in a movie, where you add one little bit at the end and go, oh, by the way. And that leads into your next thing, which I guess is another point of an epic. You should be able to grab people by the teeth and haul them along to the story so they don't want to put it down. That's another good hallmark of an epic. So, if you want to define what constitutes a good epic fantasy, I'll show them a good epic fantasy. Just, go to the limits and beyond. Keep reading.